Starting a novel is one thing. Finishing a novel is an entire other thing. There are some common reasons that people have trouble finishing the novels that they start. Even the best writers have to contend with this stuff from time to time. So today we're going to discuss some common reasons that you can't finish writing a novel and what to do about them so that you can finish writing a novel. Reason number one that you can't finish writing a novel, you're trying to write the novel that you want to write. What if I told you that you could, by the end of the day today, have a completed novel? I emphasize the word complete. By the loosest definition, a novel needs to only be a collection of 80,000 or so words. Those words can technically be anything, even just watermelon repeated 80,000 times. This is a ridiculous statement because obviously you wouldn't want to write a novel like that, but I think it demonstrates a very important point. Novels exist on a spectrum from complete nonsense that is just a long enough collection of words to be considered a novel, all the way to the amazing, best-selling, world-changing novel that you've dreamed about writing. The reason you can't finish writing a novel is not because you can't write a novel, it's because you can't write the novel that's in your head. You've become attached to a certain level of quality, and that's dangerous because it makes the thought of writing something that doesn't live up to that expectation of quality almost unthinkable. Especially if you're a new writer, writing a novel is the best thing you can do. The price you pay for skill is writing crap. The gem of your writing skill first requires removing a lot of layers of mud before it can shine. You need to accept the fact that the novel you end up writing may not be the one that you want to write. It may not live up to your expectations. But getting the novel written, getting it finished, is actually a necessary step on that journey. The next reason that you can't finish writing your novel, you aren't committing enough time. Writing a novel simultaneously takes a lot less time than a lot of people think, but also still requires a lot of time. 500 words an hour is a good target that most people can hit when drafting new fiction. I think most people can do more than that. Some people will do like 2,500 words an hour. That's high, but I don't doubt that it's possible to do. I myself can do 1,500 words an hour if I know where a scene is going and I'm having a decent day. But let's use the number 500 words an hour just to be conservative. That means that an 80,000 word novel would take about 160 hours to draft. If you write for an hour every day, that's about 22 weeks, which is roughly 6 months-ish, which is a totally fine cadence to write a novel. You will notice, though, that math means that you can't finish writing a novel in a weekend or in a single day, which I think a lot of people think they have to do. Small efforts over time accumulate. Even if all of those individual hour or half-hour long writing sessions don't feel like you're doing much, consistency plus time is how you get results. But the effort that you put directly into writing is not the only time that you need to commit to your novel. Stephen King, I think, has mentioned that he only writes, actually sits down and writes for 3 to 4 hours a day at most. This is very common for a lot of professional full-time writers. The actual time spent writing is usually just a few hours a day, but the other hours of the day are not wasted. The time that you spend not writing is almost as important as the time you spend writing. If you don't give yourself time for your novel ideas to percolate, if you don't give yourself time for them to develop, to let your mind work through them in the background, you're going to have trouble writing. The bottleneck with writing is seldom the actual physical act of writing. It's usually all the thinking and ideating that happens beforehand. Give that sufficient time and the writing will flow. Part of the reason that it takes 6 months to write a novel is not that you need 6 months to do the actual writing. Sometimes you do. Sometimes it takes 6 months to get enough time in to write a whole novel. But part of the reason that you need that 6 months is just that ideas need time to percolate. You need time to develop those ideas. Your mind needs time and space to work on them. This is the difference between doing 500 words an hour and doing 2,500 words an hour. The writers who are able to crank out 2,500 words an hour usually have done a lot of this pre-work. They've done a lot of the ideation. They've let the ideas develop, so when they actually sit down to their writing session, they know what they need to do. And the next reason that you can't finish writing a novel, avoidance of discomfort. It's amazing how often a difficult scene coincides with some kind of busy time in the rest of your life. Man, I had to write that giant battle scene with the wizards versus the ogres versus the elves, and I had no idea what I was going to do because this thing is just so complicated. And then the same day, my boss just dumped a bunch of extra work on me. Guess I don't have time to write that really hard scene that was kind of overwhelming and stressful to do. Now, as the Dalai Lama says, shit happens in life. Sometimes stuff does come up and that takes precedence over your writing. But be very careful when an interruption to your writing happens to coincide with some difficulty in the writing. Your mind is very good at convincing you at alternate causes of something in order to put up a mask of avoidance. Sometimes you feel like something has happened external to the writing that is preventing you from writing, but you're just sort of interpreting this external thing to avoid doing something that you don't know how to do in the writing. If you find that you're routinely abandoning novels in the same spot, or that you suddenly lose interest in a project, or that you seem to just always find some other pressing thing to do besides writing, it could be that you're actually avoiding something difficult within the writing. It could be that there's something uncomfortable that you have to confront in the story, or something that you maybe don't know how to fix. And the last reason that you can't finish writing a novel, you think there are things that you're supposed to be doing. I think the beginner writer can be forgiven for believing that there's a right way to write a novel. A lot of people spit out formulas and structures and stuff that you should do. I'm guilty of doing that to a degree. But while there's some universal things like write about likable characters, write in a way that's emotionally engaging, use commas correctly, beyond those sort of general rules, writing is pretty much open to whatever. If you're hung up because you aren't sure what you're supposed to be doing, then don't be. There is no blueprint that you need to follow when it comes to writing a novel. Those sorts of things can be helpful at times as sort of a guiding light, but don't waste too much energy trying to do things right. Writing is about finding your way, developing your style and your voice. Your uniqueness and the direction you take with your writing is what will build your identity as a writer. Writing a novel is less like baking a cake from a recipe and more like cooking a steak. You kill the cow, chop off a hunk of meat from it, and then cook that hunk of meat in a way that makes that hunk of meat taste as good as possible. There are general guidelines and stuff that will make it better, but your specific steak requires specific cooking that only you can figure out. That might be the best analogy that anybody anywhere has ever come up with. Your novel is going to be unique because you are unique as a writer. Don't get bogged down in rules or feeling like that you're supposed to do something. Those kinds of thoughts can drive you to avoid doing the work, and they can make it harder to finish your novel. Speaking of not having trouble finishing things, I'm about to finish this video because we're at the end of it. So there you have it. I'd love to hear about some of the stuff that has prevented you from finishing a novel that you have overcome in the comments down below. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out all my other writing advice related videos and subscribe to my channel. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.